All right, we're live. I had to pull out the actual intro because I'm classing the joint up. Somebody's taken over. They're just tired of my ragtag operation and going to put me through my paces. I have the illustrious, infamous Andrew Gold, the wonderful BBC documentary filmmaker who is going to put me through my paces today, which I think I just said a minute ago, which means that it's time to hand the reins over and let the professional get going.
That's right, Eric. Well, that's also because we're doing like this a collab, like the kids do, aren't we? Where this comes out obviously here because you're watching it now. Anyone who's watching it knows that, and it also will go out on my audio streams for On the Edge with Andrew Gold, and then on the YouTube as well. And we've been becoming. Do you think I think you're a friend of mine, Eric. Are we friends?
Well, you tolerate me. You're one of those sneaky Brits that I can never quite tell. Of course, we're friends.
Yeah. You guys say buddy a lot. That's the funniest American word, buddy. It always feels like it's not sincere, but I think it is maybe.
No, it is buddy. Buddy it's warm. I mean, what should it be? I mean, do you like pal? Hey, pal.
That reminds me of a South Park sketch that they do about Canadians. And it's like, hey, buddy, I'm not your buddy, pal. Hey, pal, I'm not your pal, buddy. I mean, you probably have to be there. But that's South Park. But yeah, I'm here today to give you a bit of interrogation, find out what you know. You're one of these guys, Eric, who just seems to know everything about, well, a lot about everything. And I know what you're thinking. You're going to deny that. You're a very humble man. You're going to go, I don't know anything. I'm not an expert in anything. But you absolutely are. And I'm going to sort of test your knowledge a little bit today about various current affairs things. But I would say, I mean, one of the things you are most well known for is making sort of videos with some expert people all about behavior, and that's why we're talking about interrogation and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. What is it that interests you so much about, I suppose, body language and what's going on in our minds?
It's a fascination. Okay, I'm gonna back up and correct you on one thing. I don't know anything, but I know everybody. So that's my secret. Is I just know the people who know. And then occasionally I can come up with something smart that they said. And
well, that's what it's about, isn't it? Recycling knowledge. That's exactly. Standing on the shoulders of giants.
Thank you very much. Yes. Who was it? Darwin. Was it Darwin or Newton? Newton, I think, said that. Standing on the shoulder of giants. But anyway, that is literally my thing, is do that. And then I take credit for it. My fascination is it's just what makes people tick, what makes me tick, what makes anything tick. I got fascinated with just people and behaviors and things that are going around societally wise, whatever. And it's not just the body language and behavior. It's things like Malcolm Gladwell and Freakonomics, things of that sort. It's just, why do we do what we do and why do things happen? And I especially like counterintuitive knowledge, where a good example will go to body language, right? If I'm sitting here and right now I've crossed my arms and you're going to read everywhere.
You look sexy. I would say sexy and brooding. Yeah. Why? What were you going to say?
Well, some would say, I wouldn't, that I was closed off and, holding in. And that could be true if, let's say, I was really, kind of clutching in hard. But the reality is a lot of times I'm sitting here and I don't know what to do with my arms. So it's just a natural rest. And it's an easy thing to misread. Another one is that, Andrew, I may not look in your eyes continuously, which could make me seem like I'm a devious fellow because, I'm shifty that way. I'm looking around.
Because you're not looking. Because you're not looking. That's shifty, right. Not looking. Right.
Exactly. But the reality is, well, a normal person doesn't look in your eyes because that's kind of creepy if I keep staring in your eyes. That is something that sexy. A liar, or it could be, it depends on the expression. It's something that somebody who's being deceptive or a psychopath might do, because I might be saying, I'm giving Andrew a line now. Andrew, are you buying it? Are you buying it?
Yeah.
Let me check up on you.
Is that like people who use your name a lot? Is that what you're doing there? Because sometimes I really like it when I'm interviewing somebody and they keep using my name and I think, oh, they remembered it. Isn't that nice? Even like towards the end of the episode. But then maybe is it some people are doing it manipulatively, maybe.
It depends on how often. That's a great point, because have you ever heard somebody, you're like, you only have to say my name every few sentences, not every sentence. So if they use it too much, it just feels wrong. And I guess a lot of these things are, yes, it's beneficial to every once in a while and say, I don't know, Andrew, that's a really good point. And then, don't know what you think. Well, damn, Andrew, you're right. That probably feels good. But if I'm saying, well, Andrew, I feel that such and such is going on. Don't you agree, Andrew? Because Andrew, that is a fascinating point that you're coming up with, Andrew.
Yeah. Well, there could be a guy called Drew in the room, and you're using a sort of, the conjugation, not conjugation. What's the word? Conjunction. Just saying
conjunction or previous
Drew as well.
Yeah, I don't know. Some
conjunction must be. And I could have just said
conjunction is two words, right?
No.
Like don't. Do not together. Isn't that a conjunction?
Conjunction. Oh no, I thought a conjunction was. Hang on.
No,
I thought it was just saying and.
See, I told you I don't know anything.
Well, neither do I. And I studied English literature. I should know this stuff. Connects words or clauses. I think it could be either of the things that we've just said. It could be and, because that connects words. It could be the apostrophe that you're talking about, because that connects words. Someone will tell us. Someone will tell us this stuff. It's interesting that you mentioned Malcolm Gladwell, because I read one of his books recently. I can't remember what it was called now. Something about strangers.
Yeah, because of your interview. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I didn't interview him. I interviewed Amanda Knox.
Yeah, she was featured in the book, Talking to Strangers.
Talking to Strangers, that's it. And it was really good. And he talks about how we actually overplay the sort of being able to tell if somebody's lying from their body language. And he talked about this experiment that they did where they got they got people to cheat on a test. They'd sort of let them do a test, and they could have some like extra rewards and money and stuff if they completed the test and did well. And then they left the room, and a lot of people cheated, and they knew they cheated because they were observing them. And then afterwards asked them, and some admitted to cheating and some lied about it. And they all like looked at, they got loads of different people, judges, lawyers, different people who should be experts, to look and see which of these people are lying. And they were no better than just the general public. That it was a myth that you can really tell all this stuff. So what do you think about that?
They probably actually did worse.
And
there was a Harvard study, I believe it was, that said, everybody who really loves Lie to Me and those shows that show all the body language tended to fare worse than the general public. So yeah, there's a lot of that out there. Part of it is because of projection. Like when you're watching somebody, if you want something to be there, be careful, because you're trying to jump to a conclusion. And it's contraction, by the way, in the chat. Thank you, folks. For don't, things like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, so
go on.
This is gonna be great on the audio. I'm like, wait, what's this chat you're talking about?
Luckily on the audio, well, firstly, I'll explain in the intro that we're doing a chat thing, and also my girlfriend Julieta, who edits this, will edit around any bits that don't make sense. So it's all good.
Good. It'll be shortened to a half hour.
No, we only take out a few minutes. It's just ums and ahs and occasionally things that's like, the audio people might not get what's happening there, and that's it.
Okay, perfect. Anyway, the reason why it would seem, first off, we tend to argue from a conclusion. Like, we're emotional animals. Have you heard of the rider and the elephant?
No, tell me.
Okay, the rider and the elephant, and there are different people who have done it, but essentially our prefrontal cortex, or our awareness mind, is like the little rider. And our emotions and lizard brain is the elephant. And now think of how much power the elephant has. The elephant's going to go wherever they want to go. And the rider's going to kind of try to steer it and just say, kind of go right, kind of go left, go this, go that. But if the elephant gets spooked or goes out of control, guess what? You're going wherever the elephant's taking you.
It's the id and the super ego.
Yeah, essentially, sure. And the problem that we have, though, is we tend to decide things by emotion, the elephant, and then our writer will come behind and explain why we decided it. It's all backwards. So we have a feeling about something. Go back to your Amanda Knox. She comes off as kind of weird, sort of a little bitch. And that was the premise of the book. It's like, oh, she probably did it. That was the thought of the people. It's like, she's acting odd. The way she's reacting in these questions, well, she's not acting like she's grieving. She acts immature, just odd. And that triggers people who are saying, this is not normal behavior. Everywhere I go around, people don't act like this. So then they're going to jump to a conclusion. Now, there's a story by Joe Navarro about this that I think is just fascinating. And it goes into body language and where it can be a problem. And he had this woman who came into a case. And this woman, she was like a secretary or something, was not a suspect in question herself. She was just somebody who worked in the area and would have knowledge of what's going on. You know, a typical witness. But she was just acting super cagey. She got in, she's just nervous. She's, nerves are rattling, just going nuts. And he's like, what is wrong here? Because she's just acting like she just did something completely crazy. What's up with this woman? He looks at her. He's like, ma'am, is there something wrong? You seem terribly stressed out. She goes, I only have so much change. I don't know how long I have on the parking meter. And I'm not sure, if it's going to be a problem. So she was displaying all these poor behaviors, but they had absolutely nothing to do with her guilt or innocence or anything to do with the case. So this is the problem. And I work with like the behavior panel and, true experts. And the one thing that they always stress, and this is one way I can kind of test whoever I'm talking to, is they're all about, in a weird way, they're about finding the truth versus finding the deception. And I know that sounds backward. You're like, wait, what? What the hell are you talking about? But what they're looking for is a baseline. So when I'm talking to you and I just am talking to you, or let's say you're talking to anybody, because all of us can do this, by the way. You just talk to somebody. How's your day? What's going on? Is that water or vodka? I can't trust you.
Yes. You actually want that is, I'm trying to think of something funny. I can't think of anything funny in the second. Saying either water or vodka is not funny, and I've got absolutely nothing. I've got nothing. It's water. I'm so sorry. I had nothing.
No, you just say it's water, dude. What am I, a psycho? I'm trying to do an interview. I grew here. I'm an adult. But anyway.
I know.
I'm not
I got past the point. I got past the point where I could have just said, oh, it's just water. And then I had to make a joke. And saying vodka or water wasn't funny enough. And I panicked. Oh, I'm sure there's a great joke to be made. And
this is great. Okay, so your baseline is already rattled.
Yeah, exactly. You would never know if I did a thing.
Well, that's not necessarily true, but now I see that you can get over. You're trying to work into something. Now we're playing a role right now, obviously, and talking to each other, but you're trying to find a pattern with the person, how they talk, the rhythm, their feel, and you just know. You start to feel it. Tell me about your kids. Oh, okay. Well, what about your friends? Do you like playing golf? Or are you soccer? I think you're in soccer, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
You probably call it football because you're weird, but
I'm not
good
bothered
for you.
By that. It doesn't bother me. Call it what you like. My team always loses anyway.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Now, when we start to get into the case and your rhythm changes and you start to tense up at different points, now I'm seeing a deviation. So that's really what they're looking for, is a deviation from the norm. When I ask you a question, right, and you go, your eyes just start going, fluttering. And this is, by the way, a reaction that you can't naturally handle. Or like I just stammered a little bit. Why are you? What's wrong? What's causing the stress? Now, by the way, Does that mean you're guilty of something in of itself? No. It could be anything, but it is a deviation. So that's telling them, that's different. Let's keep talking about that a little bit. Let's go down the line here. And that's kind of what this is about. And it's not a science. That's the first thing you got to remember. It's more of an art.
It's so complicated, isn't it? Because and I get that it's an art. I think like, so I'm one of these people, and I know there are a lot of people like me in this sense as well. It's like, even when I haven't done something wrong, I feel incredibly guilty. If somebody accuses me or asks me a question, I feel it. So even just now, even though I know we're doing a role play, and you said something like, what sport do you like? And it was like, you're asking me a question like I'm in the police. I got like a pang in my chest. That was just like, oh, I don't know what sport. I didn't do it. And so I think I would just melt under pressure, and I think I would get Amanda Knoxed. That would happen to me.
I don't know, because, and again, it depends on who it is. Your reaction's strong. And to that point, I agree with you. The more egregious the charge, the more likely you are to react poorly too. Like if you accuse me of something of what some of the people you interviewed did, I would be going, what for, potentially freaking out. But after a half hour of just sitting here talking to you, you're going to calm down. You're going to, you can't keep it up for too long. Eventually you sort of settle into a rhythm. And even if even if you're still tense, your deviation is going to be off of that baseline. It's all about baseline.
Yeah, that Amanda Knox, going back to that, I mean, she refutes what Gladwell said. So Gladwell was on Amanda Knox's podcast, and they spoke about it. And Malcolm Gladwell was saying exactly what I think is the consensus, which is just that, she didn't do the crime, although there's usually a lot of people on YouTube who get very angry when you say that, but that, she reacted in a way that wasn't typical for our understanding of, when somebody dies or whatever. And she sort of took that in, and she actually felt bad, like, why did I react so weirdly, what was wrong with me, kind of thing. And she now looks back at it and she's going, no, what actually happened was the police had no one to pin this on. They went for me, and once they'd made up their minds, almost a bit like what you were saying before, which was like the intelligence trap, that thing of we've got the emotion, we think it's her, we're going to say it's her, and the press went after her. And after that, I mean, yeah, she did do something. It seems that everything that she did was taken out of context. There was this thing that she was like cartwheeling or like doing handstands in prison. But she said, what you have to realize is you're in there for like a whole day, and she was doing some stretches, and the wrong person walked in at the wrong time. So all those kinds of things just happened. And it was our expectations that it wasn't her, it was us.
I'd say it's both.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, no, I refuse to, I'm always troubled by somebody who never internalizes. That actually troubles me about that. I like it better when she explores herself and her reactions, and I can buy the police. Yeah. I think that these two factors are compounding each other. Plus, you have a different person from another culture. You have a smart-ass American, and they may not like that. And I'm saying smart-ass American in their eyes. So I absolutely do believe that a cop is going to fixate. Sure. Again, that you're arguing from a conclusion versus trying to find the truth. That's a problem.
Yeah.
But then
I
don't actually do it. I don't do it. I know the experts.
Yeah, you do. Well, exactly. Well, hopefully you'd have done a better job than that Italian police. They were just out of their depth that time. I like what you were saying about which is similar to the intelligence trap, which David Robson wrote. Do you know David Robson?
No, I need to get him on, I think, because I love behavioral stuff like this, and that is similar.
Yeah. Well, he's also become a friend, a buddy of mine, and he's English though, and he's a science writer, and he wrote The Intelligence Trap, but then he wrote The Expectation Effect, which is basically
sneaky. He's sneaky like you.
It's about the sneaky stuff. It's all the sneaky stuff. He placebo and nocebo. That's the expectation effects, and you can live longer. It's really, really interesting. But Intelligence Trap, he talks about people like Arthur Conan Doyle, the writer of Sherlock Holmes, the master of deduction, who believed in fairies. So it's just always fascinates me. And so then what do you do in terms of like, I always hear people online debating and stuff. Everyone's debating with everyone nowadays, aren't they? If you don't debate, you're just nothing. If you don't have like incredibly strong opinions. And everybody always says, oh, use your critical thinking. And it's like, well, yeah, but everyone thinks they're using critical thinking, because I think what you're saying about the elephant, we're all following our elephant. And we're just, what do we do then?
Go with it and then try to catch it. I mean, you're going to feel a certain way. So then come to your conclusion and then say, okay, this is my conclusion. Why do I have this conclusion? Play devil's advocate with yourself. I love hanging out with lawyers. Part of the reason is because we hash it out and it's never personal.
That's interesting. That is interesting. I'm reading Gad Sad at the moment, who's coming on the podcast soon.
Parasitic Mind.
Oh, yeah, that's
son
right.
of a bitch. I've tried to get him for a while.
I got him. I don't know why. It's probably by mentioning Dawkins that got Sad.
Maybe, or you've been with Chris Williamson, so you can name drop some people.
We can both name drop people. Doesn't mean they like us. None of them like us. But Gad Sad is coming on. But I forgot what my point was about that.
I don't know. He's irascible though. Totally fun dude. Watch his follow his Twitter. He's not subtle, and I appreciate that.
So his point was about I guess at universities, I think it's something like 80% of university professors consider themselves left-wing, many with sort of quite woke ideologies and stuff. And in sociology, it's like even higher, like subjects like that, you go up to like 90%, or sometimes some universities, I think like Berkeley,
98
maybe.
is closer, about 98%.
It's just
seriously
absolutely mad, because they're always going on about diversity. We need to, get more diversity and stuff. And there's just like no diversity of political thought. And I was just thinking of that because of what you were saying about the lawyers. And I know, so just for those who don't know, Eric hangs around with some sort of famous internet lawyers but they tend to be sort of quite libertarian center right, aren't they?
They probably overall skew right, but like Nate's kind of lefty, and he's one of my tighter, friends. But yeah, in a lot of what you're talking about, Gad Sad, that comes out of Jonathan Haidt or Haidt. It's either Haidt or Haidt. It's Haidt, and he has the heterodoxical organization or heterodoxy. He's all about that. He considers himself from the left, quote unquote. Wrote The Righteous Mind. But he discovered there's a lot of interesting things with the right and the left. Like, I'm probably to the right of you, but I'm pretty, I don't know. I'd be probably a British liberal, I guess, because that's kind of more to your right, isn't it?
We tend historically, we are less right-wing than America.
Correct. So that's why it's hard for me to figure out. I'm not like a Tory per se, but anyway, I don't know your problems.
You are. You'd be a far right Tory, mate. You
please.
Definitely. Yeah, you don't realize, mate. Yeah, you would, because I am a complete like centrist. So I would in the UK, I mean, so I could vote for either party. I got put off of voting for Labour because of a guy called Jeremy Corbyn, who was the leader for a while, who was very far left, and who I'm saying I believe because I know people will get upset with me if I say this, is just say it as fact, but I believe he was an anti-Semite. So that put me off.
He did some things that pretty clearly. There's a lot of anti-Semitic stuff going on. A lot of them just couch it by saying, "Oh no, we love Jews. We just hate Israel." It's like one of those codes. So it's like they throw everything against Israel and just say, "No, it's Israel." It's there's a guy anti-Zionist.
There's a guy called, and I don't even know if you can say his name, but there's a guy called Ryan Dawson who I'm not a fan of, and and he is one of those. So you're hearing the word Zionist all the time. He's a commentator online, and he's been banned from Twitter. He's been banned from PayPal, and obviously he uses that as like a victimhood thing. And he'll always say, "Oh, it's just about Israel." And I stumbled across a video of him the other day, just saying, look at it, man. The pedophiles, Jews. This Jews, that Jews. He was just saying Jews, and it was like, that's what you really think, mate. So. We got
and there is a lot of that. It's like, well, okay, so you don't think this, but you always seem to land in this direction. So I get it. I actually hadn't heard of him before you had mentioned his name. I
Mm.
don't feel like my life is more complete than I know now. But whatever.
Yeah, don't look him up. Oh God, it's like saying don't think of an elephant or whatever, isn't it? Then you do.
I will push back though about being kicked off of Twitter and things like that does not necessarily mean somebody's bad. Like I like Sargon of Akkad. I think he's all right. Carl Benjamin.
Oh,
And he's been kicked off of everything. There's a lot of really cool people who have been kicked off, and they might be more right wing or whatever. But
also bad people.
There are
people being kicked off and bad people,
right? And I'm more about leaving them all on personally.
Yeah, I think I am too, actually. And but the problem is it becomes competitive, doesn't it? And I had a comedian in the UK called David Baddiel on. He wrote this book called Jews Don't Count, because he's Jewish, and he was basically he was talking to the sort of woke left because he considers himself sort of one of them, and you end up with this competitive victimhood because he'll often tweet these kinds of things. Why is this person allowed to stay on Twitter after the horrible things they've said about Jews and blah blah blah? And it's like if you're right, if you just set a rule like, look, anyone say what you want on Twitter, we don't need to go around banning, just don't follow them, then you wouldn't have this competitive
block them.
victim.
They've got a block tool. They have block lists. You could say, here's all the people I hate. Block them, mute them. Many options. It's funny. I'm blocked by, I guess, 160 people. I looked it up the other day just for giggles.
Surprised, you know how many people? That, mate.
I don't even know who they are. I don't know how to find out. I just saw that there's 160 accounts blocking. I'm like, okay. And I can probably tell you why. It's because a couple of people I'm friends with and follow, they probably blocked me because I follow them. I don't really care, but I don't have anybody blocked. I just ignore them.
How can I find out how many are blocking me?
I don't know. I'll send you a thing later. It's like this tool where you can just go, who's blocking you, and I found
it called Bloluk. Bloluk?
Could I don't know. Had to authorize the account. Hope it didn't hack it, but whatever.
That's what I'm doing now, because I want to be able to tell you on the stream if I beat you or not with the amount of people who've blocked.
Oh, I'm sure you're much squared away with your. Remember, you're a blue check, so you're special.
Accounts,
folks. Andrew is verified. Don't let him hide it from you. He's a verified account, so he's special.
I'm verified, but no one knows who I am. And hey, I don't think it's working, this thing. Account's blocking you, right? You want this?
Yeah, sure.
What was yours again?
I think it was like 160 or something.
Mine's 290.
Good for you.
Oh my God, 290 people block me.
Yeah, okay. I just saw it. I'm kind of going, okay, well, really, whatever. I block 0, and there are people who bug me. There are people who annoy me, but them's the breaks. And maybe someday, somebody really gets out of hand, and they're throwing things at me. Like I've followed some random accounts, and then all of a sudden, my timeline, there's some like pictures that make me go, let me unfollow them really quickly, because I don't need to have somebody walk behind me and see that. That's a little, ugh. But I don't know. People are weird.
Yeah. Speaking of weird, what can you tell me about mentalism? I saw you done a video on that recently. I'm a big fan of Darren Brown. I don't know if you know of him because he's British.
Of course. No, Darren's universal. Darren's amazing.
I want to get him on.
Oh, good luck. If you do, that'd be amazing. Well, your buddy Jordan got him on. It took him 10 years. Jordan
Harbinger.
Took him 10 years to do it.
He said that, or was it just after 10 years he got Darren Brown on?
No, he said it. I occasionally exchange emails with Jordan, and asked him. He said, "Yeah, it took 10 years. He'd been trying." I think he announced it then too. So
he's just so cool, Darren Brown.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he has something going on, he might come on your show or whatever, because you're connected.
I saw him once when I was 17. Or 16, I went with my school to a production of Antony and Cleopatra, the Shakespeare play. I don't think it was the Globe. It was somewhere, a theatre. And after the break, everyone went and got some chocolate or whatever, came back, and then everyone sat down. And one person was still standing a bit further ahead of us in the audience. And we realized that's Darren Brown. And he stood for just enough time, I thought at the time, and I'm not having to go at Darren because whatever, but I felt in that moment that he wanted everybody to realize that Darren Brown was in the audience. I'm a huge fan of his, so I'm not having to go at him, but that's how I felt in that moment when I was 16.
Could be.
Yeah.
I don't know. fame is something I'm actually interested in, and not in the sense that I want it, but just the mentality of how to cope in that. Now, think of how big of a name he is, especially in England, and how famous. And I don't know if you could act normally in public anymore, if there wouldn't always be something else going on. Like if you went up to ask him, why did you stand longer? He might be saying, I need to make sure I don't have to duck. Or I don't know. He may be actually getting the temperature of the room. He may always be looking for a potential threat or potential problem, or a fan. You listen to some of them, like Joe Rogan was complaining about it the other day, and they talk about it at random, and that's what I love, is when I just hear things that kind of at random in a conversation.
Sure.
And he was saying how he'll be sitting there eating with the family, and a fan will be literally fork to his mouth, and he's taking a bite, and somebody will come on and go like, hey, can I get a selfie? And he's like, no, dude, no.
Oh,
no.
Yeah.
If you get me coming or going, sure, no problem. But I'm eating. I'm with my family here.
Yeah.
And we don't have to think about that kind of thing. And then people would get upset with them, and they'll be like, "Oh, I see how it is." And I forgot who his guest was, but his guest was saying that they try to be cool, and it's like, "Oh wait, now you're directing me. Now you're telling me what to do." And there's certain things that we don't necessarily think about. And I find that fascinating. I've got this theory about fame where, are you familiar with Tim Ferriss?
Yeah, but we should explain anyway for listeners and stuff.
Tim Ferriss is a huge figure, especially in the bro world, self-hacking world, business world, kind of in that Dave Asprey lane. Brilliant
My
guy.
guys won't know who that is either. It's mostly British audience.
Okay, but hopefully they'll pick that up. Joe Rogan will be considered a bro figure. These are people, or Chris Williamson is in that category.
Okay.
But Tim Ferriss is huge. Tim Ferriss would go to a conference and be paid $50,000 to show up and to an hour. He's one of those people. Now, to me, that would be the best fame in the world. He goes to the conference, he gets paid all this money, and while he's in that conference, he's the man. Everybody's just like, oh my God, it's Tim Ferriss. They're all excited to see him. He's a big, famous, really cool figure. And if he walks out the door and across the street to the grocery store, they say, you want paper or plastic, man? Because he's nobody.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that is the fame that I think would be really kind of awesome, is to be able to walk into somewhere, some conference, something like that, like you're big time famous podcaster, you go to a conference and they're like, oh my God, it's Andrew Gold. I hear that sultry English voice. Ooh, yeah, it's Andrew. I hear him. Yeah. And by the way, it is weird at a podcast conference when you hear voices that down the hall, because you're kind of like, oh, and you travel over following the voice trail, because you're like, you've been talking to this person forever. It's a really intimate experience. Anyway, so that is a really, really cool feeling. But it's also so nice that as soon as you leave, because I'm relatively introverted, I'm nobody again. I can just keep my head down, go do whatever. I don't like the whole COVID thing because of the mask, etc. But there was a part of me that didn't mind hiding behind a mask.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, yeah, you know what? I can just go disappear into a crowd and not worry about it. So mentalism, I'm actually still on that topic, or back to it. I had Spidey on, of Spidey Hypnosis. He's a mentalist. He's a magician. He's been on with like Penn and Teller. Okay. You do know who they are, right?
Yeah, because they did their series in Britain, so they're quite big in Britain now. They did like a British version they came over.
Oh, cool. Well, he's been on that, the Fool Us series. And
it was like the Trick Me. You've got it, like people had to try and hit them.
Yeah, well, that's what Fool Us is. So it's called Fool Us.
Oh, Fool Us, right. I thought you were saying like a weird thing because of your accent. I was like, what's a Fool Us? But I realize you're now saying Fool Us.
Oh, yes. I don't know.
Yes.
It's a different language.
Go on, you American person with your Americanisms and things.
Fool. Oh, wait, how am I saying it wrong? Fool us. Is it fool us? Do I have to
fool us? Please do fool. What we must be fooled. Yeah, no, I don't know. I just misheard it. But do go on, good sir.
Anyway, what I like about Spidey though is he points it out that mentalism is nothing more than sleight of hand trickery mixed with a bit of a psychological edge. And that everything he does is quite literally a trick. And in the interview, he actually breaks one down that's really cool. And it's just a matter of like, you have to force people to choose what you need them to choose without them figuring out that that's what you're doing.
Right. So how I mean, the Darren Brown stuff sometimes is remarkable because he just says to you, like, I can think of the number you're thinking of and that kind of thing. So what's going on there?
Again, I'm not the practitioner. I just know that there are ways that they force it and they limit it. And I just don't quite know all of it. Like a good example, he showed something where, he takes all these random images and cards, right? But then when he broke it down, he showed that there were two types. And one was like anything of nature and whatever. And another one was anything of electronics. And then he had like a stopping point where this particular card was kind of both, like the sun or something. I forgot what it was. But either way, he'd key off of it. And then everything that went on, every prediction was a certain distance away. And he was using palming and other tricks to kind of keep it in the path. So while you think you're saying something, you're actually not. And I cannot describe it because this is something that he's been practicing for 20 years.
Yeah, I think you've got to be a certain kind of person to get into that. You've got to, and I think Darren said that himself. I heard him on it was some BBC podcast he was on, and he was talking about being a teenager at university, and it is that kind of thing. Like you can manipulate all the people around you. Everybody's going to be like putty in your hands because you can do these cool manipulation tricks and things. To a point.
But remember that he is controlling the environment all the time. And this isn't that far from the interrogation principle. They do things there too, like lower the chair to where your chair is a little bit lower than theirs. Or if they want to get really tacky, it's like a firm chair and they nail it to the floor. You know how uncomfortable it is to be in a chair that you can't move? Very uncomfortable.
There's chairs like that in restaurants I sit on. That's all right.
Yeah, but they nail them to the floor?
Yeah, no, sometimes they don't move, like McDonald's.
Yeah, but there's a space there. So it's and they usually swivel.
So yeah, sometimes.
So
but I get what you're saying. They create advantages, and they're sort of getting you on edge, kind of thing, and then hypnotize you.
Well, it's not necessarily hypnotizing, but it is controlling the environment. Everything they do is controlling the environment, controlling what you see, what you don't see, what you choose, what you can't choose. And while I don't necessarily know the tricks, there's different angles, there's a million factors that are involved. And they do know a good touch of psychology. And Darren Brown flat out hypnotizes people as well. Yeah. So does Spidey. That's the really freaky stuff is there's a video of him getting out of a speeding ticket, like with the cop.
What, Darren Brown?
No, Spidey. But anyway, Darren's done a lot more. I don't share the Spidey one because I think somebody got into trouble for it. But anyway, because you got to feel bad taking advantage of somebody. It's like that's not the goal.
Yeah, well, if they're giving you a speeding ticket, that's quite a cool thing to do, to be fair. And I don't think anyone's, apart from the police, are going to begrudge him that.
Yeah, but the cop got in trouble. And you don't want to get somebody in trouble when you pulled a stunt.
Yeah. How's the cop got in trouble for being hypnotized?
It doesn't necessarily represent them as being a stable, well thought out officer. Now I'm going to say he's your partner. So this cop who was hypnotized by just some dude in the car, that's your backup if you go in the house of domestic violence call.
Yeah.
Say, yeah. No, I definitely want to pick him first, right? Because subconsciously we see it as a weakness.
Yeah. It's a weird one, isn't it? Darren Brown was saying that it's not always it's not the people who are the weakest who get hypnotized, but he doesn't know what it is. The kinds of people who are susceptible to hypnotism, and was it?
Oh,
He's
Christina
not.
Lennon will tell you. I mean, yeah, you can. There are people who are more susceptible to it. Cops, soldiers, people who follow orders more naturally are susceptible. Artists who have imagination. The worst people are, shall we say, an engineer type, who are very like, prove it to me, do very procedural, and I don't want it to come off wrong, but on kind of almost spectrumy are very difficult for them.
Difficult
And
to hypnotize.
To hypnotize. They're the most difficult. People who have a lot of imagination, because you could take them, right? They think of things. It's easy to influence somebody with a lot of imagination. Don't think about that pink elephant that's over there. Are you looking over? And you're thinking of it. You can't help it because you've got the imagination. Or like a soldier who's been one for a while. Left, 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 right, left, and the cadence and a rhythm and a natural following with a march, things like that. That's going to help fit in patterns, rhythms, things like that. So those people are easier to hypnotize. But somebody else who is, let's just say, go back to the Malcolm Gladwell book, because he had a guy in there he was talking about with Bernie Madoff.
Yes.
And this guy just saw, like a problem in every corner and was just really not fun to hang out with. But he's the only one who saw, Bernie's scheme. It's like, oh yeah, he's doing something here. He's doing something here. I know he's doing something. That's not the person you want to try to hypnotize, because as soon as you said, hey, why don't you sit down and relax? Oh, you want me to relax now, huh? That's going to be kind of difficult.
That was Gladwell's sort of saying, there are certain kinds of people who are, as you're saying, very, very suspicious, and always, and they're not, as you say, they're not fun to hang around with, but you need those people in any sort of tribe or society, because he was the guy who caught Bernie Madoff, who was doing all sorts of Ponzi schemes and stealing outrageous amounts of money, it was like the equivalent of just like walking out of banks holding just like bags of money. And because he did it so confidently, like everyone was like, oh yeah, good, have a good day, Bernie, that kind of thing. And he got it, except for the one
I'll
guy
say something controversial about it. It's most cons are perpetuated by greed. We want things that are easy and a quick buck with little effort, and a con person's usually providing that. So a lot of times it's driven by the greed of the mark.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
What do you mean? What's a con? What driven by greed? What are you saying?
Okay, if somebody comes up to you and they're like, dude, I need a typical con would be somebody coming up to somebody else saying, I don't have my ID. I've got to get this Western Union coming in. It's going to be $10,000 when I get due. I need to establish a relationship though. So can you send the $100 to them or whatever? There's a different ones there. It's like a trust mechanism. Now, the only reason somebody's doing it is because they're going to get $1,000 or $10,000 for doing almost nothing. And if you look at all the different cons, and I'm doing a really poor job of describing it, but I am. Anyway, and the chat is going, wait a minute, what's going on here? But
don't look at the chats.
The chat's going nuts, dude. You're gonna have to peek in there for a little bit. But if you look at most cons, they're perpetuated by somebody, or a victim is somebody who wants to get that easy score. Why did they want to invest with Bernie Madoff? Because they were going to have these amazing returns. All their friends were making all this money. You throw the money in there, you're going to make a lot of money. Why him? Well, just abnormal returns that were higher than anybody else. And it's not, and I'm not blaming the victim here. I'm just saying, be careful with some of it.
Okay.
Because if you're just like, oh, that doesn't sound right. You know what? I'm just going to go with my boring mutual fund. I just feel like it's safe. Somebody who's really into safe is not going to be caught up as easily as somebody else who's saying, you know what? Oh, if I buy that property, wow, It can be amazing.
Yeah, but they're also not going to be as fun, are they, at parties and stuff? Mr. Safe, suspicious person. So
No,
I guess
no.
there's good things about both, aren't there? About both sides of the spectrum there.
Well, and the principle of the book is that we're naturally built to trust.
Yeah.
I mean, we just default to, okay, you told me your mom is sick. I'm sorry. Why would I just immediately say, are you sure is your mom really sick? Oh yeah, what's she have? I mean, then I'm an ass. What does that do? And then there is that aspect of, what does that do for me either? Oh, I proved that your mom really wasn't sick. Well, what is it? Adam Carolla, a famous podcaster, said, does it make me money or does it make me happy? Otherwise, who cares?
We should lie more often. We should lie more often because nobody ever catches you out. Nobody suspects you. That's what happens. That's that Ricky Gervais film. I don't think it was a great film. The Invention of Lying, where one day it's like this world he creates where nobody's ever lied before. And then one day he wakes up and says, oh, and he tells a lie and he gets away with it. He's like, oh my God, this is amazing. So
lying is a social lubricant.
Well, lying is a social lubricant.
Yeah.
Lying is the best fun you can have with your clothes on.
Well, okay, we lie all the time. Okay. Andrew, how you doing today? Great. You might not be.
All right.
Okay, well, okay, fine, whatever. But in general, though, if you come across somebody on the street, did you find everything you like? Did you hear that at the grocery store? Did you find everything you like?
Yes, I did.
Do you really want to go into, well, I really wanted to buy this and this and this, but you don't seem to carry it there, or you just say, yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah,
or you just lie.
I would say I'm fine. Yeah, I lie in those instances all the time. Yeah, I'm always lying.
But that's a social lubricant, right? Because if I say, how you doing? And you say, fine, you may not be fine. You may have just lied. And when I ask you how you're doing, I may not really care. But we've now just had this exchange and we can move on. Am I really asking you to find out that, well, 2 years ago, my mother died and I'm getting close to that anniversary and I'm just trying, I'm like, oh shit, man.
Yeah.
I asked
this that's a cultural thing as well, because in Germany, they're not used to that. So when I was living there, I would go to the shop and I'd buy something and I'd say like, oh, how you doing? And they would just go like, was? Was hast du mir gesagt? Like, what have you said? Like they don't understand how are you they're like, I'm not even your friend. Why would you ask me that?
It's a little weird. It's a little forward.
Yeah, it's for them. They would rather, and I'm not, no offense to German people, that's fine if you want to live that. They would rather just sort of, head down, walk straight, don't smile, and live your life that way. And that's fine if that's what they want.
Well, and that's fine too. I mean, somebody who kind of has worked with me in the show is she's Ukrainian, and she talked about how when she was living in the States for a while, she had total resting bitch face all the time. They're like, what's going on? And then she started to warm up, and then she got home and they were like, what is wrong with you? Why are you smiling all the time? You are weird.
Yeah.
So
that's how we communicate, isn't it? Americans and Brits, and I guess other English speaking countries, we have a real fixation on like smiling to each other, which I think comes across as a bit false in other cultures, like in France and Germany.
For sure. All right, the chat's gonna run amok here. They're like, there's too much small talk. What do we want? What do you guys want? What
are they complaining? This is just small talk. Frank Barron, will you tell us what to talk about, mate? I want to talk about. Well, do they have questions? We can go with questions if you want.
Yeah, there's too many people here, so if there's questions, go and just say question and then what the question might be, and Andrew may or may not do that, and I will shut up because somebody said I was taking over the interview. I'm like, well, what do you mean?
Well, you're supposed to talk more. I'm asking you stuff. Hunley, and Andrew, as a German, coming to the US is weird. It took me like 2 to 3 years to comfortably walk into a store without being weirded out by people greeting me. There you go. Everyone's loving it. Eric, what are you worrying about? They're all having a great time. It's just one or two people weren't.
Oh, that's a trend lately here in the States, by the way. It drives me crazy. Welcome to Fill in the Blank store. That annoys me to death. And because that they're forced to by their employer.
It's too much.
Yeah,
no, it's too much. Right, we've got 10 minutes left. Let's hear your thoughts on what's happening with Johnny Depp at the moment.
It's an interesting trial. The cross-examination is probably even more fun than the direct examination. But it's kind of boring in a weird way. It's
please
fascinating.
continue. So tell me why.
It's boring because it's sort of like they're really focused on Johnny Depp and drugs. Did you know that Johnny Depp did drugs?
Obviously, yeah.
Well, there you go. So it's sort of like if you establish the fact, and the guy's like, "Yeah, I'm an addict. Yeah, I was kicking. Yeah, I will go on the nod when I'd have the pills." Well, if you keep bringing up instances of his doing drugs, it just sort of gets into the noise. You're like, okay, so he's a drug addict. Yes. He's got a drug problem. Yeah. He drinks too. Yeah.
I've got a theory about why he's doing that, though, because I think that it's something that he can say, and he doesn't really care about people knowing, because he knows everyone knows already, and he knows he's not going to get prosecuted for it. And
Sure.
It shows everyone straight away that he's telling the truth. So look,
Mm-hmm.
I'm honest about my drugs and stuff. Why wouldn't I be being honest about the abuse with Amanda Heard?
Yeah. Well, and it's Amber, but yeah, he definitely. Well, but the thing is that they're not really proving his doing any violence. They've shown that he writes some really, really nasty texts about her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have actual physical violence from her to him. But I haven't seen yet. Now, I haven't got every bit of the testimony, but he wrote some really dark stuff about essentially. Well, I don't want to go into it because he demonetized on YouTube. But anyway, setting her on fire and doing things with the corpse and da 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 da. But
that was in the emails with the guy from Wimbledon, wasn't it?
Paul Bettany,
English guy.
Paul Bettany, the actor. Yeah. But the thing is that, okay, you're English, and I'm going to argue that Johnny Depp, especially if you listen to the way he talks, sometimes it's like he's doing that put upon, almost fake English vibe or whatever.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, I'm a cultural thing. Blah blah.
Yeah.
I think he's into British humor. Some British humor can be just really, really dark, from what I've seen. Back to Monty Python, which could be, but silly, but also, I mean, what is it? The Black Knight. It's only a flesh wound as you're cutting off every limb of their body. That's so you're taking something and you're just bringing it to the ridiculous level.
Yeah.
So I can't
that's the privacy. This is what's really interesting for me about the case. Being British is like, why are we seeing this? Why is this being broadcast to the world? The defamation case. We're not allowed in the UK. We're not allowed to bring cameras into courtrooms. You have those stenographers, the guys who draw these people, but even that, I'm not sure that's technically really allowed either. The point being that it could fall into the wrong hands. It could show that let's say you were saying something bad about the mafia, and then they've heard you've said something bad, but they're not exactly sure. But if they actually had the audio, they would know, and then they would kill you. So we don't allow cameras at all. Meanwhile, like this really, really private thing between two people is that the whole world is seeing it. And Amber Heard, there's the stuff that was said about her in those texts. I think that's what you're getting at. Is it was awful, but like, I mean, that the right to privacy, you should be able to say anything. You should be able to say anything to a friend. You're talking privately to a friend in some text messages, and they were saying something like "burn her" or something like that, and it's like that is awful.
All that, but now, am I wrong when I say that there is a certain type of person who has that as humor?
But I think a lot of British
right
people,
before it,
in particular.
Right, Bettany said, "Oh, she's a witch," and then what happens to a witch? They're burned at the stake, or they're witch ducked, where they put them in the water and then see if they float. And Johnny Depp is he's into literature, and and I can't help but wonder if in Redirect he won't be like, okay, well, that happened to fill in the blank historical figure, or that was something that was happening then, and he's going to take everything and exaggerate it. Everything about him is exaggerated in a lot of ways, and very, I want to say flowery, even though that's a horrible term to say, but it kind of is in a way. It's over the top. Yeah. Every description he says, flamboyant, perfect term. And that's why I'm like, the deeper and crazier it is, the more I'm
Yeah.
going, okay, now we're getting into ludicrous. Like a good example, Quentin Tarantino. Have you seen Kill Bill?
Yeah.
Well, famously in Kill Bill, they've like they've stabbed somebody and the blood was a fountain
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah.
Nobody spurts blood like it's taken to the ludicrous comical level almost. So I would argue that some of this text with his friends are just that. But the reason I do like the cameras in the courtroom, and he wants them in the courtroom, he wants this out there because he has been told to the public he's a wife beater. She has ruined his reputation. He's lost all of his work, and we're talking $50 million, $100 million. I mean, you can't even imagine how much money this guy's lost because of this. So he wants it all out there, and I think that's fair. I also like the idea of the cameras in the courtroom because if you actually followed the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, you would find it shocking what the prosecution was trying to do and the stunts that they were pulling. And it is very frightening to consider what can happen in a closed environment with an unscrupulous prosecutor, as an example. What if it was a death penalty case? Then you would be going, oh, maybe. Now, there is a flip side. One thing I've heard about England, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that in cases of sexual assault and that type of thing, they hide the identities of all parties involved until a conviction takes place, and then they're actually revealed.
I'm not entirely sure, actually. There's always been talk about how it's unfair to name the man, the offender, until we're sure it's them. But I don't know if that's American stuff that I've been looking at and not British. So yeah, I don't know which way around.
I thought it was British that, it's like, because here we get people charged with something and they carry that around for the rest of their life, like a scarlet letter. Even if they're proven not guilty, there's still people going around. I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse, there are people who call him a murderer still to this day. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he was found not guilty by a jury of his peers. He will never be the same. He will always walk around as a killer.
Well, we disagree about that one, Eric, and that's okay, isn't it? We can disagree about, because I know we disagree. Carl Rittenhouse, just for those listen, he was the guy who he went to. There was a big what was it? A big manifestation going on, and he ended up in self-defense, shooting and killing a few people who apparently were quite unsavory people, and two people. Was it? Are they part of Antifa? Were they? BLM?
No, I don't think they were even organized in that. The two people, and he shot a third, and they were definitely in self-defense. He was attacked, and he was running. So he was running away as he was being attacked. So it's hard to say.
He still drove down with a huge gun to a rally. What was he doing?
A huge gun versus a half gun? I mean, do we have a gun level?
I love talking to you. Gun. No,
this is what I like.
Gun, Eric.
This shows the scope. It's like, Andrew, would it be better if it was pink?
Eric,
I mean, we can make a rainbow colored gun.
Do you know how big his gun was? His gun was enormous. It was bigger than 10 people, right? All the others had small guns, and he had a massive gun, and that was a big. No, well, look, he went out. You know what it? Look, it's just a place where you and I are going to disagree because we're from different cultures and backgrounds.
Sure.
And we grew up around different things, and it's never going to be right in my head. Not that guns are legal or not. I mean, that is a complicated thing. Although for most British people, it's like, why do we have guns? But okay, I understand that, and I understand that you don't want that freedom taken away because you've grown up with it, and it just feels like, well, a slippery slope. And I do get those arguments.
There's other factors this was not considering.
This was this sort of quite odd fellow who's just I'm going to say it in the most flippant way to annoy you. This is some like guy. He's just driven across state lines. That's what everyone kept saying. That meant
except he didn't.
It was like he went across the state line,
right? Which is untrue, by the way. Which is untrue.
But no, fine. That's untruth. Then fine. But he turned up with a massive gun. And just
so Kyle came in with a tank, folks. Kyle is in a tank driving into town.
But jokes aside, to a British person, it's just like the most foreign thing we can imagine.
Put a couple factors in here to consider.
Go on, come on.
If he was a security guard at an installation, and they were attacking him and burning the installation, and he fired in self-defense as they were attacking him, what would you say about the situation?
I'd say that's fair enough, yeah.
Okay. He was asked by the owner of the auto dealership to come because the night before, the whole town was burned down with millions of dollars worth of damage. The cops were not actually responding in any way, and they asked private citizens to come and please guard the facilities because they were setting them on fire.
Yeah.
He was there at the request of them saying, please. He also had his paramedic bag and was treating people. So it's not quite crazy kid wanting to go shoot people. It is maybe a dumb kid, because I'm not going to go put myself between a potential riot and a store personally. That's not my gig. But somebody who's a true believer or whatever and says they're going to stand guard and they're going to treat for wounds or whatever, here, don't touch my property, go march, hold the light up, but don't set this business on fire because the owners can't afford it. They've lost everything on insurance. That's not quite the same kid that you're describing. So we can get into the, nuances and details of whether somebody should be there with a gun or not, but protecting property, I think most of us would agree. Yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
You've still described as an armed ideologue.
Somebody who wants to protect property is an ideologue?
Okay. True believer.
Sure.
True believer.
Well, I mean, a true believer could be many things. I mean, technically, you can say that the people who are setting the businesses on fire were true believers.
Yeah, well, they're no better, is it? But I mean, vigilantism's not. Is that legal? Maybe it's legal.
But he is not a vigilante, because a vigilante would actively be hunting. He was guarding. So that's the thing. If you're standing there and you're guarding something and you are attacked, that doesn't seem quite the same. Well, as soon as I said he was a security guard, you were like, oh, yeah, I get it.
Would the whole thing not be better if nobody had guns?
No.
I know how to push your buttons, Eric. This is something that pushes your buttons. And you know what? I'm not as strong as most British people are on this. I don't really mind.
I actually have fun with it, so I don't care. I mean,
I like jabbing at you, mate. I like jabbing at you. Luckily, neither of us are armed right now, Eric.
Well, and don't worry, because in London, I mean, he's working on taking away knives too. So, we'll get that taken out of it. So, and if we could take away your cars, I think that'll be amazing. Because you guys are a little dangerous. I wouldn't trust you Brits with guns.
We've got the safest roads in the world. But Sadiq Khan, is that who you're talking about, Mayor of London? Is he getting rid of knives?
He was trying to. Yeah.
How will we eat?
Not my problem. You guys figure it out. Maybe it's like you have to have a license to have X number kitchen knives or whatever. I'm like, okay, so you're allowed. It's like, oh, wait a minute, that's an 8-inch, but 8-inch kitchen knife. Ooh, stop that. Never mind a fillet knife. That's pretty sneaky.
How large do you need your knives, mate?
I don't know. You're worried about large guns.
Anything large.
I want a big knife.
Yeah, a big knife. He went down there, Carl Rittenhouse, with a huge knife. He had a huge knife and slaughtered everyone. No, it's not. I shouldn't joke about it because it was quite a serious thing. What happened? But I don't know. I think it might be better if there was just no guns. And also, I know it would be better if they weren't violently protesting in the first place. These guys, smashing people's shops and their businesses.
And think about that. If they didn't do that, none of this would happen, right? If they were not smashing businesses, it would just be another day.
Yeah, they wouldn't have had the masked Avenger who doesn't have a mask.
No mask, first aid kit. Yeah, you're right.
Did he go down with a first aid kit?
Yes, that's why he was a trained medic, and he did treat.
So
wounds.
he knew he'd shoot someone. He knew he'd shoot someone.
Wow, that's a leap of logic. Okay.
I'm winding you up, mate.
I love that.
It's fair enough what you're saying. It's fair enough. Eric, where can people who are listening to my podcast, where can they find all your stuff?
Eric Hunley, man. I don't know, just look up Eric Hunley on YouTube. I do America's Untold Stories, which is a show with Mark Robert, and we cover things like, we do a lot of things on the Kennedy assassination, conspiracy, but also Hollywood, pop culture. We did a lot of stuff on Baldwin. I do a show called Laid Back News, and on there I have the legal panels, and I do like a news show every week or so. And in my channel, I do a lot of behavioral stuff and interview people like Andrew Gold on occasion. And Sean Atwood, I know you do a lot of work with him. He's been on. I don't know. I'm everywhere. Eric Hunley.
Lovely, Sean. Well, Eric, you've got 3 fantastic YouTube channels. So people do. I know most of you on my people, you listen on audio, but if you get onto your YouTube, get onto Eric Hunley. He's a good friend of mine, and he's got some really, really good content. People here in the chat telling me I'm naive. I am. What did you say?
Unstructured podcast, by the way. If you do like podcasts better, unstructured. That's under my name. There's like 200 and some odd episodes.
Get listening to that, guys. And yeah, people in the chat calling me naive here. I am joking with a lot of the stuff, just so you know. I'm just trying to annoy Eric. I don't have particularly strong opinions about all of it. Just want to annoy Eric. And you guys, please do come check out my On the Edge with Andrew Gold YouTube channel. Interview lots of people like Eric. What Eric's about his being on it, and I'll put that out in the next few weeks. And psychopaths and all sorts of weird and strange people. Richard Dawkins was on there, and I think you'll enjoy it. So come subscribe. Say that you came from Eric's. I really like when people do that, because it's like you can see marketing in action. You see someone, like I've said, come over, and then people come over. Hey, I came from Eric, and I go, that's you. Nice to meet you. Nice to have you on my channel. Oh, any thoughts, Eric?
Sure, this was easy.
Yeah. I'm still getting even Nosferatu, who's my most loyal viewer, is still saying I strongly disagree with you. I'm just joking around.
Good for him. Good for him. And he kept asking me TNA. I don't know what exactly you mean by TNA there, Nosferatu.
TNA, what is that?
Or T or A. That was like one of the questions. I said, go and ask a question, then we never address them.
Oh no. Well, I always when it's just me or whatever, I'll talk to Nosferatu later. I'll tell him what's what.
All right.
Yeah, he'll know what's going on. Yeah, this was lovely, Eric, wasn't it?
Yes, it was fantastic, Andrew. I always love hearing your sultry voice.
I'd always love seeing your sultry face. Oh, right. Oh, thank you, Ziggy. See, someone said a nice thing, even if he doesn't. I was joking about guns, Ziggy. Right. Are we? How long do you usually go on for, Mister?
This is good.
Yeah, we can call it a night.
All right, folks. I know we didn't interact with the chat a lot. Appreciate you coming on either way and hanging out with me. Trying to do different interviews, different things, and see what you're responding to. I guess is the best way to put it. So I'm always open, and put it in the comments if you like this. If you're saying, "Geez, what are you doing? Who's this knucklehead?" And in the future, I'll actually make Andrew tell his story of the exorcism, because I tease that, and then Andrew and I get talking about other stuff. So Andrew and I will actually, you know what, we may even record it separately. I'll just do a straight interview and find out all about him and the exorcism and put it on the channel one way or another. But we will get that information out of him. I got a lot of flack from the last one by just chatting with you, man.
Oh yeah. Okay, we got to stay on like one thing. It's hard to do, but we will do it. And I love talking about the exorcism stuff, because that was probably the maddest month of my life. I got to perform exorcisms on people and see how they got better or worse with their various ailments, and then exposed the exorcist because he was sleeping around with the women he was exorcising, which was a bit of a shame.
Just good to be king, right?
Yeah, that's what it's about.
I mean, every cult leader, it's like, coincidentally, every time you go find a cult leader, you're like, for some reason, all the women get to, sleep with the cult leader. All the wives sleep with the cult leader. All the girls sleep with the cult leader. Why is that? Wonder what would inspire somebody to become a cult leader.
That's what it is. Keith Raniere, Nixium, he was doing that.
There's a long tradition. Charles Manson on down. I mean, dude,
Scum.
There's a reason. All right, TNA. On that happy note, folks,